Welcome to MadMat. Tonight we're in the salon with the first of many conversations with masters. Our topic is Beatitudes and Yoga. Our speakers are Father Anthony Randazzo and Swami Brahmananda Saraswati. We hope you enjoy the show. I'm so grateful that all of you and both of you made it here this evening. Father Anthony, I would like to ask you a couple questions just about yourself and your journey. You're a pastor in a prominent local Catholic parish, and you've been doing that for the past 6 years. You're about to leave this post. Looking back over the past 6 years, what's been the greatest learning for you in that experience?
To me, I guess the greatest learning prior to the 6 years as the pastor, I was the associate pastor here in Notre Dame for 12 years. So I've actually been in the community 18 years. And I think at this point, the whole sense of how you build trusting relationships with people, that's one of the great recognitions as anyone goes through life. And particularly when you're in a leadership role in a community, people are trusting you constantly with major issues of life and death all the time. You know, we are in the midst of the cycles and the journeys of life. So in these last 6 years as the pastor, one of the areas that I have been about is the spirituality of adjustment. Sometimes you can plan and it has to be adjusted. Sometimes you can put a vision together and the vision has to be revised. Sometimes you can have an agenda and the agenda has to change. So for me, one of the things I've learned is more flexibility, more fluidity, more moving with the seasons of life, not always being overly rigid with, say, scheduling, but being, a little more loosey-goosey at times. I mean, in the sense that you just move with the tenor of life and serving people and how that happens in a compassionate, for me, Christ-centered way. Basically.
So that sounds a lot like yoga.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
So I was going to ask you, in what way has yoga most greatly influenced your life as a priest?
Well, as you know, I met Madelana in a yoga class, and the way yoga has influenced my life is when I began to practice it, it became an opportunity to, my mother at that point was going through the final stages of cancer. And I had entered a health club and I was mainly just swimming, and then decided to peek into a yoga class and noticed that people of all ages were doing that. And I needed something more. So I went in there and I began to see how yoga was helping physically and emotionally as I prepared to let go of my mother into eternal life. So in that case, yoga became a great complement to a faith journey. I never saw any of the, I would say, opposite poles. I just saw them complementing one another, practicing faith, practicing yoga. Began to go on a circuit of exploration in the yoga world, in and out of Manhattan. Began to have more conversations with great yoga teachers like Madelana, and it became a passion. So the passion for the yoga practice and the passion for Christ and His teachings began to weave together, and it gave me more serenity. When I went to yoga, it gave me a break from some of the pressures of priestly journey and some of the things that necessarily can be unnerving at times. So yoga became also a great catalyst to prayer. I began to see it as enhancing my prayer life, enhancing preaching. It became for me a source of spiritual balance. Began to really enjoy Shavasana. Began to get more deeply into the centering prayer practice in the Christian tradition because of the meditation techniques and the breathing techniques. So all of this began to be a complete package, and still tremendously enjoy it. When I'm in that room, when I get in there, or if I do it on my own, the practice, I always say, oh, needed to do that. And so the benefits and the gifts of the yoga practice have been many. And it also has given me an alternative community. It's good to be with all of you from different backgrounds, and being centered obviously in the Catholic Christian tradition, to have one foot in another world, in the world of yogic practice and all the other spiritualities merging, has been exciting to not just be centered entirely in the Catholic culture, but to have the opportunity to go beyond that, to the global soul, as I keep saying, the global soul. And it's been a fascinating journey. And
so you've dabbled in a lot of different kinds of yoga practices, but as I understand, you kind of have settled with the hot yoga as your favorite.
Oh.
Care to say a few words about that?
Well, with the hot yoga, with the practice there, I find that the temperature in the room really gets the cardiovascular going, and I want to build up a sweat. I want to get in there and at the end of it feel totally exhausted. I want to get the sense that I crawl out of there. And then also what I find is, after, I don't usually have a long shavasana in the class, but when I get back home, have a light lunch and then take a little bit of riposo, siesta, then that sleep rejuvenates me after that kind of very vigorous practice. And that's part of it, of why I keep going back. I like the heat, especially in these days. I like going into the heated room.
It's very soothing. So at this point, what's your vision for the next thing? You've done the book. What's your vision for the next thing of how to combine your love of Christ and Christ's message with your love of yoga? What do you see as another possibility, or the next possibility?
Well, that brings me to this little picture that I'd like to show the group, because work has to be done in different contexts. So my hope is that someday that, let's see, I can put this right here, that this little group here will someday be exposed to this work, okay? This is a group of people that the Pope met with just a few weeks ago. And you may recognize someone right there in the front row. You recognize her, don't you? Absolutely. Yes. This is Pope Francis, who is meeting with all these world leaders about ending slavery and human trafficking in the world. So my hope is that all of us, from all different sectors, from grassroots to the highest levels of these relationships, that all of this can come together, that somehow, some way, more pictures like this can be taken, and that it will make a difference. This gentleman here, Rabbi Skorka, who is the personal friend of the Pope, he's right here. He's also become a dear friend. He's from Argentina, and we've had many conversations on how to bring the peace to the world. In fact, he was with Pope Francis in Israel during the springtime 2014. So my hope is somehow in the future, maybe I can carry the luggage for one of these folks at a major conference, and just as they whisper into my ear, I could be whispering into their ear. And I'd like to whisper a few things into his ear too. So as we get going, and just one last thing, is that with Pope Francis, the Beatitudes, he's made that the center of what he would like young adults to be memorizing. He wants young adults to be memorizing the Beatitudes. He's telling them, don't worry about the commandments. They're easy. Now let's start with the Beatitudes. The commandments are easy to follow. Not quite so with the Beatitudes. Learn the Beatitudes, memorize the Beatitudes.
Well, maybe you can just slip a yoga mat in his suitcase as a gift.
The Yoga Sutras, you asked why they are lesser known. I think what Father is saying here, or what Jesus is saying in those Beatitudes, if you look at it, the answer is there. You see, he was in that particular part of the scripture meeting with people with different life situations, different needs, different things that are happening to their bodies and minds and lives and families. But and he addresses all that. And I don't remember all those conditions that, he just spoke, but, see, the human mind is such that the relative things, you can hold them and then they can slip by. Me and him, we were just talking, a few minutes ago, and I tell all my students, the Yoga Sutras, and it's like I can say things, and then suddenly we were talking about the practice, and I was able to say two things, and for third, I need to open the book. So that's mind. But something very simple, that we can take from his teachings. He said, blessed are all these people. What he's trying to say, he's not saying that blessed is everyone, because it's not personal enough. It's not intimate enough. When two people fall in love, most people, no matter what their expression of love is, they are ultimately celebrating love. Physically, emotionally, by sharing a space, doing things together. But ultimately, they are sharing love. But they can't just say to each other, hey, I love you, and that's it. There's more to it. There's more to celebrate. So he has to be personal with all of them. So it has to be done personally. But what is he doing that has to be done personally for teachings to get to the people? Somebody has to, if you have seen the light, if you have, tasted something beautiful, you share. Sharing has to happen. So he's telling everybody that everybody is blessed, regardless. A person who is having cancer and is about to die, tell him, you're blessed to have cancer. Good. They might freak out, but it's true. If the body was reaching to that state where, not that the suffering is a blessing, what is coming, there's already this situation, but the blessing is that there is a definite way out of it. There is definite way out of it, and you will definitely get out of it, no denying. The God, the universe will not leave you alone by yourself. Even if it feels it's hopeless, it will help you, it will take you, and before you know, whether in a new body or in the same life, the same body, you look behind, you're like, it's behind me. So, the point is to become conscious. If you are conscious, then you are able to see the truth. Sometimes your mind tricks you and you are afraid of whatever is going on. It weighs on you. You close your eyes. Then maybe it takes somebody to touch your shoulder and say, hey, it's okay. You know what? If you open your eyes, there's light. Let's open our eyes. So you just need to be conscious. It's common sense. It's nothing, too complicated. The level of collective consciousness, personal consciousness, and intimacy, between people is what dictates that how much people in that particular society are going to be aware of the truth. Now the good news is that there is a lotus of enlightenment blossoming somewhere all the time. It might be cold winter here. Somewhere on planet Earth right now, springtime. Pollens will come. And they will travel with these cold winds. And before you know, they will bring flowers here too. So it's going to happen. I think sometimes we do get lost, because we are so motivated. We want everybody to know the Yoga Sutras. We want everybody to know the Beatitudes. It will be wonderful if everybody knew them. It will be great. But when you look intimately, even Jesus, he's enlightened. Buddha, he was enlightened. These people, they were so fulfilled. For them, there is no suffering. They are beyond it. Why they come back? Because so much compassion comes once you experience that truth. You want to share it. The problem is, you can't give it to them externally because the source is within them. So you scream, you talk, you get intimate, you make efforts, and you hold your hands or drag them or pull them, bring them there. Sometimes in that enthusiasm, am I pronouncing that right? Yes. So sometimes I say enthusiasm, so it's funny. We get taken over and we might end up, while we are trying to help, we might end up pushing people. And that they're already afraid so much that even though it's a helping push, they will only flinch back, they will resist more. So what is needed is love, support, intimacy. That's the basic that will help for people to understand it. I can read these words, and let me actually try, and I don't know. I'll open a random page and I'll say something here. Suffering is caused by change, anxiety, impressions, and by the opposing activity of nature. Indeed, discriminating person knows that everyone is suffering. How many of you got that? I didn't get that. I read it. Because there's no intimacy. That's mind is secondary, heart is primary. And if you can take the hearts in confidence, then people will give their minds. But you have to understand, heart is tender. It's like a rose flower, very gentle. You have to be very kind to it. There is no logic with it. You have to love it, water it. And before you know, the seeds will come. The mind will open up. There are people in all around the globe, without knowing Bible, without knowing Yoga Sutras, have reached enlightenment, have lived an enlightened life and left their body. I don't want them to know Yoga Sutras. They knew it. They realized it. They already lived the Beatitudes. They were kind to people. They were helping people. Isn't that what it is? They were nice to people. So it all comes down to being present. And if you are present, take a breath. And then maybe you can feel other person's heart, touch it, help it. Don't be in a rush to change them, transform them. It will happen. Just pour enough love. Once their hearts are healed, their minds will stop being busy with the primary function, which is to keep you secure. Mind is an instrument of security. It just is trying to keep you secure. And when your heart feels threatened, mind is doing its duty. We cannot blame people who don't know Yoga Sutras and who don't know Bible and who are right now maybe just not so far away from us, trying to forget things by doing some white stuff or drinking something. We can't blame them. Their heart is in so much pain maybe that it has become numb. You get it hard enough. I recently started, practicing boxing, and sometimes you get punched so hard that there is no pain, but there is no consciousness either. You just become unconscious. When you are unconscious, you cannot think, you cannot decide. When I'm lying there unconscious, you can't expect me to, hey, move your elbow like this, or just get out of the way of punch. You can't. At that time, I need some nursing, some care. Give me enough of that. Maybe one day I'll be better than Muhammad Ali. Who knows? No, I would like it. So that's the thing. You just have to give enough love, support. You don't have to know any of it. Just help your friends, help your families, love them. Be passionate about it. Give as much love as you can. And don't worry that you need to get it in return. You don't. God has given you enough of it. He has given the entire kingdom of His to you. It's inside you. Jesus says, the kingdom of God is within you. So you are never poor. Don't think that you don't have enough of it. Just keep pouring out both hands. Just throw it away. More will come. And then people will love you. They will sit down with you. And forget about trying to teach them this. If you took most boring magazine and said like, hey, Peter, I'm going to read this to you. And if Peter loves you, Peter will sit down and like, yes, you know what? You have given me so much anything. And the words that will come, the logic will be secondary. Your voice will be so soothing that the person will drink it up like the best bottle of wine, like Rick says, or the best wheatgrass salt, if I'll say. So just that's the first requirement. And then the second requirement, as we create that environment, that fertile ground of healed, fulfilled, loved hearts, these seeds of wisdom, because all this knowledge, the whole book of Bible, the whole book of Yoga Sutras, there's actually enough scientific research that the coherence that these sutras create, it corresponds to the folds in your what is called meninges of the the covering of your brain. There are exact number of folds as exact number of Yoga Sutras, and each one has, if you take the proportionality of in terms of length, it corresponds to the length of each fold. And when you actually recite these Yoga Sutras, it activates. But it doesn't have to be done externally. If you are healed enough, if you are loved enough, internally it will come in you like it came inside Jesus, like it came from within Buddha. Both of these people, if you ask about the moment where all this came to them, well, it came from somewhere without being printed here or without somebody telling them. So it's all inside you. Just take care of yourself, love your families, be nice, be passionate about loving. And yes, hey, then if you want to read Yoga Sutra, it's a good book to read. If you want to read Bible, it's a good book to read, and it will come. We just have to create that space. I'm committed. I know Father is committed. When you taste it, it's like getting addiction. When you are addicted to a drug, you want everybody around you to be addicted to it. So I'm addicted, to yoga. I'm addicted to the principles that he's talking about. And I want you guys to have them too. So I'm going to do everything in my power, and I want you to, try every day a little bit, whatever you can do. And before we know, we all will be addicts, good addicts. All right.
So this idea that it's really all about love, I actually never really heard the Beatitudes in that way, because I've kind of picked out two Beatitudes that would be the ones that would inspire me. Mm-hmm. And as I reread the Beatitudes, I thought, wow, on days when I'm feeling really pretty bad, I think about the Beatitudes. I think about the ones that are, blessed are the poor, or poor in spirit, or, the most beleaguered parts of my life. But I want to strive for something more. So, blessed are the pure of heart, right? Blessed are the peacemakers. These are the more uplifting things. But is it really that Jesus was saying, I love you so much in your sickness, in your mourning, in your being disparaged by those around you, that I love you so much that that condition doesn't make you unlovable?
No, Madelana, you're absolutely correct in the sense, and I'll tie both together with Swami has said in regards to intimacy. Intimacy is the very foundation that leads us back to the seat of wisdom within us. So this external saying will meet the seat of wisdom within us by virtue of intimacy. Intimacy and spiritual development are hand in hand. when it comes to the issue about that specific beatitude, blessed are the pure of heart, that term pure is a very significant term in the Jewish culture, because there is a culture of the pure and the impure. There's the culture of what makes a person impure by virtue of an action, and therefore they have to go into the mikveh in order to get back to that state of purity once again. So this is a culture that separates, sometimes because of moral evil, or sometimes because of ritual impurity. You know, when people were going up to the temple, to the Holy of Holies, and if there was, if they met the procession with the dead, and if they were in the presence of the dead, they became impure. Then they would have to go into the mikveh to get back to the state of purity. So what Jesus is doing in that beatitude is transcending the codification on purity and impurity in that Jewish culture. So he's putting that aside, and he's saying only the pure of heart, that's what counts the most. It's not how you're rendered impure, it's your heart that is already pure. Now, in community, that will draw it out. Because these Beatitudes are always set in community, because community and intimacy are woven together. You can only have self-intimacy, then shared intimacy, then authentic intimacy with the divine, when all this is somehow flowing. And maybe this is where the yoga comes in. The yoga begins to help us to let the flow of the self-intimacy, true self-intimacy, not ego, true self-intimacy, shared intimacy in relationship, all based on this authentic oneness, unity with the divine. So that we begin to see, as Father Rohr says in his last statement, I am who I am, which is ultimately, I am one in God, and God is one in me. Now, the beauty of what we're doing here is when we look at these texts and we begin to interpret these texts from different points of view, now we're into the golden age of sacred text interpretation, because it's not only Christians interpreting this, it's Swami interpreting this. It's not only perhaps Hindus interpreting the Yoga Sutras, it's Christians looking at the Yoga Sutras. Now we've come into the golden period of commentary. When you had the Torah, the Mishnah, the Talmud, those are rabbis in that era, 2nd, 3rd, commenting on the Torah. But they're in the rabbinical tradition, they're in the Jewish tradition. Now we have Hindus commenting on the Christian scriptures and Christians commenting on the sutras. This is a period of global sacred text interpretation like humanity has never seen before. Because we are no longer in the ghetto of the ego, we are now in the global soul. And once we get into the global soul, then we can begin to really sift the pearls that bring us to the Namaste. Then we're going to really come to Namaste. And we're getting there. We're getting to Namaste.
Absolutely. Yes.
We're there and we're getting there.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're there and getting there.
Yes, just like you said. Yes.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, we really just want the truth at this point, I think. Wouldn't you agree?
But not just a truth like 1 and 1 equals 2. It's deeper than that. We want a truth that's not philosophical truth. We want to feel it. We want a truth that, once again, in our soulfulness becomes just palatable. We want the soul to taste it. We don't just want the mind to certify it. That's what we're going to. Not just in that, in a doctrinal, this is one of the things sometimes in the Roman Catholic tradition, we're so, doctrinal truth. Well, doctrinal truth is not necessarily going to mediate for us in the Christian tradition the deeper presence of Christ. No, it's not going to be mediated through doctrinal truth. It's far deeper than that formula. It's far deeper than that proposition.
It was a wonderful experience filled with a lot of love. It was truly wonderful to hear two great men speak about topics that resonated directly with their heart, that are absolutely life-changing. The words that they've shared not only affected my heart, but everybody in the room literally felt difference, and I can see the difference within their faces and the smiles that they actually sparked right after the conversation was over. This is a great event, and I'm honored to be in the first one. Technically, this is the first time this is happening. I'm speaking to everybody in the room. Yes, to be able to see this grow more and more and more. This is the year of vulnerability, and to hear true intimacy spoken at the start of it is a beautiful thing. So I encourage everybody who's watching this to come to the saloon and witness beautiful events such as these with the absolutely beautiful people that fill it. And that's from my heart to yours. Thank you.
The event was so beautiful. I got so much emotions right now that it just sparked something. It just sparked something great. And that's me, Eric. And I'm really grateful, truly grateful to be here around all these great people from different backgrounds to see the unity in 2015, and especially this day that is so symbolic in a way, because it's Sunday, which is the day of God, the day of the sun, and it's the 11th. So it's a very powerful day, a very powerful event, and truly grateful for that.
The evening was delightful, and I feel very filled from all of the spiritual teachings, the positive energy, and the love that was shared in the room.
It's such a pure form of yoga. And then the priest is here, and he's open to that. And in my mind, that's always how I've looked at it. But to see like two people who are kind of full expressions of that here, and they're dialoguing together, that means that's like really significant for me to see that. Because it ends like a personal conflict in a way. It resolves like internally something that I have like dealt with.
We have enough different Christian churches, we have enough different Muslim sects, we have enough different Jewish denominations. I think we need people to look at each other and realize the sameness and forget about the differentness. And I think we should all learn to look at each other without our eyes. We should look with our hearts.
Thank you for coming to the MadMat Yoga Salon.
We really enjoyed having you here tonight. Father Anthony and Swami G were just amazing. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, and we look forward to you at the next salon. Thank you for coming.
Peace.
Namaste.